Welcome to Breaking Battlegrounds with your host, Chuck Warren. I'm Sam Stone. Before we get started here, folks, help us grow Breaking Battlegrounds by leaving a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your favorite content. For more clips and updates, follow Breaking Battlegrounds on social media. Also, because I feel like, Chuck, we come to this with a pretty unique perspective. I think between the two of us, we have, almost... I'm dating us, sorry about this, but like 50 years now of experience in campaigns and public policy.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a long time.
It's a long time.
And I think that flavors the view on this show in certain ways, right? Like we're pretty open about who we are.
Right.
Right? I think that differentiates us from a lot of content producers out there who try to kind of just go with whatever the flow of the day is.
Well, I was laughing last night. I saw a campaign commercial. Is it Mary Wood who's running for CD1?
Yeah, Galen Woods. Marlene Galen Woods.
Marlene Galen Woods, who used to be Grant Woods' wife.
Who was AG in the state of Arizona.
Was Republican AG.
Republican AG.
And then he got TDS.
Yeah.
And literally had a mind melt about it.
And married a fairly far left news anchor.
Well, and I thought as I read that she was complaining about her opponent, who's a doctor, was not liberal enough on abortion on some things, and I was thinking, so you were a reporter all these years. What makes me think that those extreme positions did not influence what you're reporting supposedly objectively on the nightly news?
It clearly did, right?
I know. And we've talked about this before. I think for people who play the game that I'm just a reporter, I'm objective, social media, especially Twitter, has truly just destroyed that. And what I don't think they understand is that when people say the trust in the press has gone down, it's because they're all mouthing off on social media.
Right.
I mean, literally, if I had something like the Washington Post, I would just say, we will post your articles. You cannot have an account. Mm-hmm. Because you're only going to go and blow your cover.
Right. No, absolutely. And the problem is, because they're so slanted, if you get the Washington Post, the New York Times, you're getting 50% of the news.
Yeah, absolutely.
50, 60% at best. They're just not even reporting the things that they don't want you to hear. Like, one of the things we wanted to talk about in this segment was the controversy in Major League Baseball with their Pride Night.
Exactly.
I haven't seen the reporting, but do you think there was much coverage of that, like thoughtful coverage of that on any major network?
No. I know why teams do this. You do too, because you did it.
Right.
You do these special nights that bring people to the stadium.
Yeah, no, it's a great way. Look, you need dog owners, right? You hold your Bark in the Park night because all the dog owners who would never come to a baseball game are all out there showing off Fido and Fifi. And you make a bundle of money selling dog treats out of the concession stand.
Absolutely.
And you do this is the same thing. Absolutely, 100%.
So I get it. But, maybe, I think it's only the Texas Rangers that don't celebrate Pride Night. But, right. Sam, for our audience that may not be up to speed on this, because there's a lot, I'll tell you why I say this. I think more and more people are just turning it off.
Yes.
I had somebody the other day I was talking to. Used to be really just consume newspapers, they have a life, they have a business. And we were talking about something, and he just said, yeah, I just don't pay attention anymore. It's just not worth it. Which I understand, but it's also very dangerous for society when people are not informed. But the problem is they don't feel what they are getting is informed. So explain to our audience, given the background of this Pride Night and I'm using air quotes, the scandal regarding the San Francisco Giants.
Well, I want to come back to your friend after this, but yeah, so you had a couple of players on the San Francisco Giants and the Oakland team, right?
Right.
Who the teams held a Pride Night event. Now, Major League Baseball teams have had a policy of doing all these Pride Nights, right? Whatever. But they've also had a policy that told the players you don't have to wear the special cap or special uniform. If you want to wear your normal cap or uniform, you can. Well, the California teams came out and told their players, basically communicated to them, said you have to wear this. You have no choice, right? And you have all these people who legitimately are very, whether they're religious or they don't want to be part of this. They don't want to participate in promoting something they're not involved with, that they don't believe in. And that's fine, right? Like,
well, as it should be in America.
Right. Like, I do not hear the left. Granted, we all remember the story of the Colorado baker that they went after for not baking a rainbow cake, but you never hear them going after Muslim bakers for not baking rainbow cakes, right? Like,
never.
This is obviously really selective outrage on the left. Well, so these guys wrote biblical references on their hats.
Right.
Right. And in doing so, they torqued their teams off. It became this huge controversy throughout California. The rest of the nation is kind of just yawning at the thing. But what I thought was most interesting was the MLB commissioner coming out afterwards and saying, yeah, the California teams miscommunicated with their players, and they should have told them that they can wear whatever they want. They can wear their normal uniform. And also, like, because MLB had gotten its toe in the crack on this one over having sent a letter to the players saying you can't modify your uniforms by writing those passages on them, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that is a standing policy.
Right.
But it was interesting to see baseball back down on this, because this is the kind of thing that in recent years sports leagues, much against their players and their fan bases, have really pushed hard.
Well, you and I have talked about this, and it drives progressives nuts, or Democratic Socialists of America Democrats, which seem to be a growing trend in the party. I don't think you would have had the MLB respond like that 4 years ago.
No.
And I think people have just pushed back, and they just don't care. You can't counsel people like that anymore.
Right.
It's like, we're just not doing it. And I think people also come to realize, you're some troll. You don't matter. You don't care, right?
Well, here's the thing. You and I go to a lot of sporting games, right?
Sadly so, yes.
Sadly? That's like one of the best parts of my life. I don't know. I mean,
But they're expensive, but nonetheless.
They are expensive, but it's something you and I enjoy quite a bit.
Right.
And we have friends who are gay, right? You meet and talk to people in the stands. I would bet that, a pretty representative portion of most baseball audiences, basketball audiences, football audiences are gay. None of them give a crap about this stuff.
No.
They don't need this to come to the ballpark. They're coming to watch a ball game. That's the average fan. And then you hold a pride night like this, and you bring out some people who just want to come out and wear their rainbow flags and do their things and pay their money, and fine. But this whole controversy and the way they put players underneath the gun on this thing is just
just start putting a thumb on it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do that on Pride Night, then logic would dictate for the other 162 nights a year that players have games.
Right.
That they should do it. So Catholic night, do they not eat fish on Friday? If you're LDS, everybody needs to wear a white shirt and a name tag like they're going on a mission. I mean, what is this, right? So you got to just say, look, we're recognizing you.
Chuck,
but not everybody here needs to do it.
How? And then I got to ask, how have the Salt Lake Bees not done this?
They may have. Who knows? They've been around so long.
Like missionary night, where the players are wearing the name tags and the white shirts. Come on.
They may have.
You may need to suggest that to somebody.
We may have to have Bo do that in the office for the girls. We got a little Love Island going on in our office apparently.
It is, yeah.
But anyway, so let's talk. But part of this too, I want to talk about the elections in New York. And they elected 3 people who beat incumbents.
Yep.
Democrat Socialists of America candidates, really.
With very low turnout. That's one thing that's
right.
not been.
So I want to talk about the turnout here for a minute. And that's what I wanted to bring this to. So they had on this, just folks so you know, turnout rates for voters younger than 34 were less than half what they were in 2025.
Right.
Okay. In New York's 7th congressional district, which spans parts of Brooklyn and Queens, younger voters carried Mamdani-backed union organizer Claire Valdez to victory. 18% of voters in the district between the ages of 25 and 34 cast their vote. 18%. By contrast, turnout rates for voters over the age of 45 were under 14%. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you go through all these numbers, these turnout numbers were atrocious. So, Mike Johnson yesterday, Speaker Mike Johnson just said, look, there's a real trend coming here. But they don't have the numbers. You got to get out and vote.
Right. Well, so there's something else that happened here, and I've talked to a lot of people around this, right? So these DSA members have enough people sown through the various union systems in New York and California, that they are preventing them from doing their normal turnout operations and instead running their DSA-backed turnout ops, right?
Right.
So what they have done is actually subvert the long-term Democrat-backed establishment machine system and essentially just canceled it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so they're not turning out the numbers they would have turned out. And the DSA is. They're turning out, they're very targeted. Look, the DSA, they can talk about poor people all they want, but there are basically no poor people in the DSA who aren't paid to be members of the DSA because the entire membership is between the ages of 18 and 34. They're college educated, they're affluent, they're rich kids. These are kids of privilege. These are silver spoon kids. And they're just rebelling against mommy and daddy. I mean, that's what this is, and it's gross.
For a big example, in New York's 10th Congressional District, which spans lower Manhattan and much of the brownstone Brooklyn, older voters have had always higher turnout, okay? This election last week in New York's 10th Congressional District, voters between the ages of 65 and 74 had a 25% turnout. They represented just 11,000 votes compared to 16,000 votes of 25 to 34-year-olds.
That's nuts.
I mean, they just let a bunch of communists walk into Congress.
Well, and this is the thing you and I have talked about for a long time.
Which, by the way, is a godsend for the Republican Party. Seems like the apple dumpling game right now.
No, absolutely. I mean, so a lot of polling right now is showing Republicans are really, really underwater with the American electorate. Thank God Democrats are further down in the abyss.
Well, yeah.
And these people will sink them further.
There will be a media firm that the Trump folks award who's going to make a fortune pushing this communism, socialism movement message. Communism,
socialism, Islamism. Yes. It's a really nasty combination.
And I want to talk about that in the next segment. I am baffled. You know, for example, we talked about before, this Friday, tonight, we have Iran playing Egypt, and it's Pride Night in Seattle. And Iran has gone out and said, do not do that, or asked not to have this happen. Right. They're doing this night. Where are all my blue hair, pink hair, liberal white friends protesting this? Why have they decided? I've decided the only reason they have wanted, we can discuss this further, the only reason they want to go and team up with them is they really want to destroy America.
100%. That is exactly the only purpose of this.
There's no reason.
Tearing down this country and handing it to some of the craziest, most evil humans on the planet. It's nuts. Folks, Breaking Battlegrounds coming back in one moment. All right, welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. We were talking about Pride Night in Seattle for the Iran. Here's the thing, folks. Pride Night in Iran, they don't throw confetti at the gay people. They throw rocks. Like
they do.
They do. They throw them off buildings. You are going to be murdered if you are gay in Iran. Period. Syria, Lebanon. You know, you're lucky in Egypt that their laws are slightly more moderate. But across the Middle East, other than Israel, there is no safe haven for a gay person anywhere.
So here's my question. So ESPN reported last night, is it FIFA or FIFA? What do we call it?
FIFA.
FIFA. FIFA won't prohibit rainbow flags at the Egypt-Iran match. Will we see fistfights in Seattle Stadium tonight?
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, no, I'm serious about it. And it's a violent scuffle. It's not some two drunk...
No.
Big fat white guys.
It's going to be a real thing. I mean, it's going to look a lot like the aftermath of a Raiders game in Oakland.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to go back to the point we were talking about. I've wondered why these highly supposed educated, university educated people, which does not mean you're educated, but they have a degree, why they are teaming up with a religion that is so contrary to their belief system. I don't understand. And I think, as you said, as I spouted off and you agreed, I think it's because, they want to destroy America and they want to destroy America.
And they hate this country. They hate the West. They have been trained to hate it.
They hate it enough that they're hypocritical enough that they're willing to throw their LGBT plus friends under the bus to support these horrific people. And again, folks, this doesn't mean all Muslims are horrific. There's a majority of them who are wonderful human beings. They're great neighbors and great business owners. But there's 15 to 20% that want to burn the whole thing down.
Yeah, so this is where I kind of align. And look, you know, like our good friend Sheikh Kateri, there are a lot of Muslims who are, as you say, wonderful people. But I kind of, in this area, agree with Brigitte Gabriel, who says, yeah, but they're irrelevant because they won't do anything about the extremists.
No, that's exactly right.
And so, like, yeah, you may be 80%. But if your 80% is not willing to tell the 20% that want to kill people for instance, that believe it is okay to stone a woman to death for being raped, if you're not willing to fight back against those people, you are irrelevant.
Well, let's look at this, for example. I just Googled this. When asked global opinions on Sharia law, when asked globally, should Sharia law be the official legal code? Okay.
60-something%?
In the Middle East and North Africa, 74%.
Yep.
So where are the immigrants coming from to Europe?
Middle East and Africa.
Okay. South Asia, 84%. Southeast Asia, 77%. Sub-Saharan Africa, 64%. Again, where are those folks getting immigrating to?
They're coming here in Europe.
Yeah. Central Asia and Eastern and Southern Europe, lower support, 12%. You know, that's Albanians. You know, that's more of the mellow sphere. But
yeah, that actually might be. So the old Eastern European pocket of Islam might be the only pocket in the world that really is almost entirely free of the radicalism.
Yeah, and they may be. Yeah, I mean,
they're the model to me of what Islam can and should be.
Matter of fact, what's funny? I'm reading this right now, so I'm doing an AI. Okay. They have it under moderate support. Okay.
Moderate.
What would you of a scale of 1 to 100%? What would you give a number for being moderate support for Sharia law?
35%, 40.
They list moderate support found in places like Egypt, 74%, Indonesia, 64%, and Tunisia, 56%.
Oh, God.
Low support in Turkey, 12%. That's not surprising since they've been a member of NATO in the West for so long, right? Anyway, yeah, so what you have is a group of hypocrites that want to defend and back and support a ideology, a theology that wants to destroy America and Western Europe. We always say it's just America, and they're doing it.
It's Western culture. They are doing it.
And they are doing it in Western Europe, for sure.
No, absolutely. Look, I truly believe, I mean, the interesting thing, and it's sort of been, it's wonderful, and to me, in a sense, sort of sad, all the Europeans, particularly the Scots and the Brits who have been coming over here and really enjoying themselves for the World Cup and seeing the difference between the country that their politicians have been creating recently and what we still have here. The problem is I don't know that they're going to go back and have any success in pushing back on it or even really try.
No.
Right?
No.
Like, and so much of this, people love him, but so much of this, I now consider Barack Obama perhaps the worst president in U.S. history because to get reelected after his first term proved unpopular, he went out and turned the forces of racism loose. He deliberately divided the country, his non-white coalition, to build, and he unleashed the forces of DEI and CRT from the back rooms of colleges where they should have stayed and made them powerful throughout society. And the result is this racist we have less racism than we have ever had across the entire West, and certainly here in the United States, far less than we have ever had before at any time in history. And yet we have this narrative that this is the driving force in our culture, and it all stems back to that SOB's reelection campaign.
Well, it was funny. I saw a news clip this morning, and they asked people attending the library opening what was his major accomplishment. And, now the news clip probably only put those who didn't, but they had no clue.
There's nothing.
No. Matter of fact, I'll tell you we were talking about the Trump factor about MLB.
Yep.
You have not seen that 4 or 5 years ago. So remember, at the beginning of the second term, Trump had a suspension of entry for citizens from 20 countries and partial visa from 19 others. I have not heard anybody push back on that.
No.
I mean, and remember 16 when he did it, it was called a Muslim ban. I've not heard anything.
Right. No, I haven't heard a word about it.
I mean, you got Congo, you got Burma, you got Chad, you got Afghanistan, you got South Sudan, Syria, Yemen. I have not heard heard pipe about it. I'm sure there's some lawsuits, and if I went to New York, I'd probably hear a little bit about it.
Right.
But I remember that was a talk. He's all for banning Muslims, and now people are like, and again, I don't think you have that unless you had Elon Musk buy Twitter, which is now X, where people showed what they were actually doing. Matter of fact, did you know Denmark yesterday banned prayers?
Yep. Public prayers,
blocking roads and everything, right?
Yeah,
you can still,
which they should.
Which you can go do in your synagogue, or your Muslim. What do they call Muslim? Mosque. The mosque. You can do in your mosque anytime.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There is absolutely no reason. It is a demonstration of dominance, of an assertion of dominance when they do the prayers in the streets. That's what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Pure and simple. And until that religion reforms, and I'll say this all day long, I don't care what anyone calls me, until that religion reforms, it has no place in the modern world. It needs to undergo the same type of reformation Christianity underwent when it actually understands that a lot of the concepts are evil and they need to be excised, period.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Folks, stay tuned. We're gonna have Bee's Corner coming up here in the broadcast segment. You are not going to want to miss that. And before you go, please leave Breaking Battlegrounds a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts, especially if you enjoyed today's conversation. We don't usually just do these conversations with Chuck and I, and we're moving Bee's Corner up. We wanted to have a little bit more time with you, our listeners, today. So we're doing that, but stay tuned. We've got some good guests still coming up here. Breaking Battlegrounds coming right back. All right, welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. Before we continue on today, got to pay the bills. And if you're behind on your bills, you need to listen to this one.
Folks, do you have a private student loan? Do you have a kid that has a private student loan? Do you have a neighbor who has a private student loan? And they're almost in default or distressed? Well, if that is the case, you need to call Y-Refi at 877-400-9989. At Y-Refi, they won't check your credit. They're going to find a payment plan that will allow you to repay this private student loan without keeping you in debt. There are people who had $3,000 a month private student loans. It got dropped to $1,000, $800. You're not just a person. You're not somebody on an Excel sheet. They're going to make your life better and allow you to pay back your commitment. So if you want to learn more and need some help, call 877-400-9989 and tell them Sam and Chuck sent you, or visit yrefy.com. There's somebody there to help you. It will make a big difference in your life.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, talking about making a difference in people's lives, one of our favorite segments is being moved out of the podcast and into the on-air portion here for today. Which is why, folks, if you are not, you need to go subscribe. Yeah, Bee's giving us a dirty look that we said only today. She's kind of liking this
Just
one.
watch. Just kidding.
All right.
Just wait.
It is time for Bee's Corner.
Murder, mystery, secrets untold. The truth gets set free when B gets a hold. Crimes where killers roam off free, or even ones where they get caught at the scene. From cold case files to headline news, she's breaking it all down just for you. So come take a seat, don't miss a beat. These crime corners where the stories go deep.
All right, what do we got?
Okay, so today I picked a case that happened in 2022, December 29th. It started with Officer Isaiah Cordero. He was 32 years old, pulling over a car for not having tags, just a normal routine stop. When asking the man where they are, he said, probably in the house, probably in my bag. He had a very, nonchalant, I don't care energy. And that kind of sparked a little fear when you watched the footage. And he then asked for his license, and he's like, I'm going to need the registration as well. The man looks at him and was like, I have to grab it in my bag. He reaches in his bag, grabs his 9, and shoots the police officer in the face. This happened in San Bernardino County. And It was within 5 minutes that police showed up to the scene. Obviously, this gentleman fled the scene, but a neighbor saw his car and heard the shot. So they went out, called, and got help. They ended up cross-referencing his body cam footage to like get a vehicle and figure out, who this guy is. Before that, though, the police officer died 5 minutes after the shooting. Now, the reason I picked this case is because I feel this is still such just a consistent issue where we have people on the streets who have proven to be a threat to society, and they are still on the streets. So this actually, I recommend watching this video. This gentleman, his name was William McKay. When they cross-referenced the body cam footage with all the street footage and ended up getting his car found 2 hours later by a police officer who was off duty driving on the 15, they ended up, a huge manhunt. There was at least 7 police units in on this manhunt. They had the canines. They had what was called Bearcat, and it was this huge military-grade vehicle, and they were chasing him through this freeway, trying to get him for at least 2 hours almost. And once they finally got him, after, laying down spikes, having to literally break through California traffic, you see at least 70 cops, lights on behind him. It's incredible. It's crazy. All going after this guy who killed one of their brothers, 7 units, and helicopters, everybody from different counties. They're now pulling up information during this search, too, about how he had previous, issues, and he recently had stabbed a police dog. Yeah, so...
Why was he out?
That's the biggest part.
What year did this happen?
2022. So, once he got underneath the bridge, this is after he had 3 tires blown out, and he still kept going. He started firing 3 shots at the police officers before he crashed under the bridge, and then all the police officers grouped around him and fired at least 73 rounds, which he ended up, being deceased, but it only took 23 seconds of them firing, and he was done. They searched his car. He had a dagger in his pocket. He had the 9 that killed the officer. He had powdery white substance that they didn't name what it was. He had a membership to a white supremacist gang. He was part of a biker gang in California. Now, his rap sheet is the size of a CVS grocery receipt. And it began in 1999. He was guilty for assault with a firearm. He went to prison, and then he went to prison again, and he got out because he posted bail and only had to post a percentage of it.
Letting criminals out early is one of the most dangerous things, and the judges doing that really need to be held accountable.
What was the stat this week that 1% commits 67% of the violent crimes?
It's insane. Insane. Folks, Breaking Battlegrounds back in 1 moment.
Hi, kids. Remember your dreams? All the future plans you made? Has private student loan debt destroyed those dreams? It doesn't have to. Why Refi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can reduce your payment, you can get your life back, and they don't even care what your credit score is. Don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call Why Refi today. Let's go!
All right, welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. Our first guest up today, Tony Napolitano, is a senior attorney at the Goldwater Institute with more than a decade of experience litigating complex constitutional, regulatory, and commercial matters. Frankly, Goldwater does some of the best work in the country, in the world today.
Gold standard.
Absolutely, when it comes to fighting for constitutional limited government principles. Tony Napolitano, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
So I want to start out with something more national news. So the Supreme Court this week struck down Hawaii's vampire rule for gun owners. You've covered Second Amendment issues before. Can you explain to our audience what the rule was and why it got overturned?
Yeah, absolutely. So the rule was that someone who is carrying otherwise lawfully a firearm was not allowed onto private property that was open to the public unless they had explicitly been given permission to carry a firearm onto that property, right? So this applied to, any sort of large business that has an open to the public policy, restaurants, shopping malls, things like that. you would have to get explicit permission to carry your firearm there. That's a huge, huge burden on firearm ownership and firearm carry rights. So for the law to set that into place actually prevents a lot of people from being able to go about their day and, just basically conduct normal activities of life with a firearm for their own defense. So what caused the court to strike it down is recognizing that burden, and ultimately the court requires that the state find a specific instance of the law from the founding to show that was a common firearm regulation at the time, and it simply was not. There was no.
Right. Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, this is, I assume, Hawaii and everywhere else. A private property owner has the right to, for instance, put up a sign and say no firearms on this premises, right?
Absolutely. That is your right as a property owner. Absolutely.
So what was the state trying to accomplish here? Whose interests were they protecting if all the people who own these properties have the right to put up a sign and say no firearms on my property?
Now, obviously, I'm not a legislator in Hawaii,
but what were they saying?
But I have to imagine that what is going on here is they wanted to make firearm ownership and the exercise of your carry rights so onerous that essentially they could sweep up anybody. Right? As a property owner, if you have a sign out or you ask someone to leave because they're carrying a firearm, that is absolutely your prerogative. You have private property rights. But for the state to come in and then dictate the way that you exercise that prerogative really limits, number one, the way that we can exercise our property rights and makes that onerous. But I think more importantly, makes it very, very hard for people to just come into a normal place of business and have that firearm on them to protect themselves, which means that you might, as a gun owner, a lawful firearm carrier, choose not to do that because you know it's going to be so hard to go about your day without potentially breaking the law and ultimately running into a legal problem for yourself, right? That's the other thing, is the enforcement of this. If you are a private property owner, someone comes onto your property for any reason, you can ask them to leave. That is your private property. However, if they, if they come on and the state now says that they violated the law, before you even ask them to leave, they can arrest that person. The state can arrest that person and they, can have criminal charges brought against them. I really think that this was just trying to make it very, very hard for people to make that choice. Yeah.
Well, one question, then a comment, and then we're going to go to the next topic here. Is a church considered private property or public space?
It would be a private property that is open to the public. That's squarely within, I believe, what the law was targeting.
Sam, your comment makes me think, because of how ignorant most of the public is on public policy now, that people don't realize they probably think this applies to anything, including their home.
Right.
And gun rights supporters Second Amendment supporters should definitely make the case. Look, if you don't want somebody coming to your house with a gun, you're absolutely legally in your rights to say no one brings a gun into my house. I don't think people understand that.
No.
And they would probably be in their rights. They'd probably be smart PR-wise to start pushing this.
Well, yeah, no, they absolutely would. I think the right would do very well to start clarifying a lot of these type of things. I mean,
they'll take it as a one-size-fits-all.
Well, because we were talking at the start of the program about these low turnout elections we're getting across the country. Who's turning out for those? Frankly, people who don't know much.
Yeah,
quite frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's scary.
All right, let's talk about Goldwater is suing. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut in real quick, but let me tell you that law in Hawaii specifically targeted private property open to the public, so it didn't even apply to your house.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Okay. So Goldwater is suing to stop Phoenix from doing this land giveaway.
Yes.
Give our audience a background on it. Tell them why it's important that you guys are suing on it, and let's go for it here.
Absolutely. So, City of Phoenix has a piece of land that it owns. It acquired roughly 20 years ago in the Roosevelt Row area, just a few hundred feet off of Roosevelt.
Which is a very expensive district in Phoenix. Yes.
It's a booming area.
Yeah.
It's a booming area.
Absolutely. Right. And it is, as the city admits, walking distance to numerous major attractions and other things that people love to do in downtown Phoenix. So
for folks who aren't here, I mean, if you think about Phoenix is one of the largest cities, basically the size of Rhode Island in terms of geography. This is one of basically two places in that entire geography that are the most attractive for builders.
Yeah.
Correct. And right. The access to bars, to restaurants, to sports arenas, to any number of museums and other places that people want to go, the convention center, the symphony hall, it's all really, really close to right there. And so anyone who's interested in urban living, this is a very impactful place. Or anyone who's interested in building a business tower and having office space, with convenient access to those things. This is a highly prized piece of property. And in 2023, this property was appraised for $4.8 million. Now, obviously, that's a few years old now. Things could have changed. It possibly could be worth even more now. But just taking that $4.8 million
based on growth of downtown property values, I just did a quick back of the napkin comparison, but you're looking at about a 10% increase. So you're looking about another $500,000 that property has to be worth essentially by now.
That's what I would assume as well, right? And that all makes sense. So we've got this piece of property. The city of Phoenix is selling it to a developer in essentially a sweetheart deal for $1.5 million. The way this came about is they put out a request for proposals a few years ago saying, hey, we want to sell this property, and the minimum purchase price is $4.8 million. It has to be mixed use. So we're imagining, right, commercial with residential on top is the way that normally
which is great in that area. I mean, that is actually, I don't love any of these requirements, but that is the best business model for that area, quite frankly, or mixed use with retail on the bottom and office space above it, but some type of mixed use.
Exactly, some type of mixed use. And then they put into the RFP, you must have, if you have residential, you must have low-income housing for at least, I believe, 20% of the units that you're providing. And, they still said, okay, $4.8 million minimum purchase price. But if you're doing something, and this is where the key part comes into this dispute, if you're doing something that provides a public benefit to the city, to the people of Phoenix, then you can reduce the amount of cash you give us proportionate to that benefit. So the winning bid that they got here said, we're going to give you $1.5 million. So 1.5 versus 4.8 conservatively means that there's at least $3.3 million that the city of Phoenix, which means that city taxpayers, people like us who live in Phoenix, are going to lose out on in terms of something that we own right now, right? Remember, the city owns that property essentially for us, right?
Yeah.
Those are our assets. So the city is going to sell that. We're going to lose $3.3 million in the deal. What are we getting back, right? Because if the city got paid that full amount of money, the actual value, the fair market value of that property, they would be able to use that extra money, the $3.3 million difference, to fix the roads, to, maybe buy better fire trucks or help the police department. That's normal things that you think the city should be doing, right? And that's a lot of value that they could then return to us in terms of, hey, we have this asset. We're essentially holding, as a fiduciary for the people. And here's what we've done with it. Here's how we've turned this vacant lot, which, right now definitely should be developed, into something that is going to benefit the people that own this land right now, which is all the citizens of Phoenix.
What's amazing about that is this is a 64 unit project, isn't it? Is that what it is? 64 units?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
So just a little AI search. A developer building a 64 unit apartment complex will make probably $6 million in profit.
Actually, guys, it's worse. So, as a lot of people know, I was chief of staff to one of the Phoenix City Council members, Sal DeCiccio, for about 5 years. So these public benefit developer corporations, the one the city used to play ball with all the time was called Trellis. Unfortunately for Trellis, they backed some candidates who lost some recent city council races. And so now they're going out of state for this Penrose LLC, which is tied to the far, far left. These are the most profitable real estate deals in the city every single time they happen. I know this because they actually tried when it was Trellis to get Sal involved in it and told him he would make a guaranteed 30% return on his investment. They promised that. Now, understanding the average developer shoots for a 7 to 10% return on their investment in most of these properties. So you're talking about they're tripling the profit margins on these projects. And what they're producing are some of the most overpriced apartments imaginable. And then they have this deal where they give them out. And here's what happens. It gets worse behind closed doors because the people that get the discounted rents and the guaranteed low-income housing in these things are all people who have direct connections to the members of the city council and the housing authority for the city of Phoenix. It is the worst insider scam you can imagine, giant circles.
Well, we won't put Tony on record with that, but Tony,
no, but I said it.
Tony,
I said it because I was there.
So, Tony, we have 2 minutes left here. So, what is the process Goldwater does now? Give us a timeline. What's going on with it?
Okay, so here's what we're doing. We brought our complaint. The motion to dismiss that the city has told us they'll be filing, basically on half of our claims, but they're not going to move to dismiss the other half. Is coming today. So we'll be fighting that. And so. What I know for that so far is that they're challenging the piece specifically about affordable housing. And by the way, this is one of the big questions here is, right, what's the city getting back? And Penrose LLC has said, well, what you're getting back is affordable housing. Okay, well, Goldwater, number one, disputes that affordable housing is necessarily a direct public benefit. As you've laid out, there could be numerous problems with what that actually means and who gets it. Is it actually benefiting the public? But even if it were, you have to assign a value. And the value that Penrose has put on this is actually tied to their own expected revenue, their net revenue over 15 years. So they basically are saying our business profits are the value that the public gets, which is ridiculous.
Especially since it's not an in-state corporation, but
Correct. So you're right. So I think they will be making a subsidiary, but basically they're going to file this motion to dismiss, saying, you know what, the affordable housing piece that's actually a separate law that's violated in addition to the Constitution, that needs to be thrown out because I think they want to separate those issues. We'll obviously fight that. Generally, it's going to take a couple months in the court to get to a ruling on that. And then from there, we're really off to the races with the full merits of this case.
Tony, thank you so much. Folks, go to goldwater.org to follow all the work they are doing there. Or is it goldwaterinstitute.org, Tony?
Goldwater Institute.
Goldwaterinstitute.org. Go there, check them out. They're doing great work. And make sure you're checking out Breaking Battlegrounds. If you're not, download the podcast. You're not going to want to miss our next guest. We'll be back on the air next week.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. We're continuing on now with one of our favorite longtime guests on this program, Susan Crabtree, national correspondent for Real Clear Politics, 2024 Dow Prize winner, and author of Fool's Gold, a book on California corruption and Gavin Newsom's deep ties to China and the CCP. It has more than 1,000 EndNote citations, no anonymous sources. Susan does, we love her here because she really does some of the best deep dive work in journalism today. Susan Crabtree, welcome back to the program.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
So Gavin Newsom and his lovely wife seem to be in some trouble, and he's leaning into it. So tell us what you have discovered in your research about his ties to donors, what they're using for nonprofits. I mean, it all sounds so tawdry.
Yes, it does. But one of the weirdest things about it is that it's all some of it is illegal in California. The basis of it is legal. What they're doing with their nonprofits, I'm finding out it may be very illegal because the devil is in the details. But
Yes.
let me start with this whole concept of behested payments, and just bear with me a bit here. Behested payments in California are like legal shakedowns. So politicians are allowed to ask a favor from their, favorite corporation, nonprofit, funder, campaign donor. Nonprofit I'll emphasize that word because it's beginning to be clear to me that there's this huge nonprofit industrial complex in California attached to the state government. But so Jennifer Siebel Newsom has this documentary film. She has a for-profit side for the company. She has a company that makes films, and then she has a nonprofit side called the Representation Project that distributes the films and actually compensates the for-profit for making the films. So and she's taking money. Now, this isn't the behested payments, but she's taking money from corporations with business before the state. 10 years ago, when I started looking into this, and other people started looking into it, she got some scrutiny. I don't think it was quite 10 years ago, but it was right when he started his tenure as governor, so about 7-8 years ago. We started looking into this a lot more. And so she just, of course, shut down all of those donors when she files them on her tax returns. She doesn't disclose, but before that, we know she was taking corporate donations from PG&E, which is responsible, a big utility in Northern California, responsible for the deadliest fires and a huge fatal explosion in San Bruno. So they knew that this is a bad actor, but they cozied up so much to it that they actually have an executive producer line, PG&E, on one of her gender justice films. Yeah, it's really
gender justice and hexavalent chromium.
I mean, the gender justice encompasses a lot. Because in that video where Newsom disclosed that where he leaned into it, where Newsom disclosed that he was being investigated, he says, "Oh, my wife is being targeted by the Trump administration. All she's ever done is stand up for women and girls." Okay.
That's all.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
No. These films have a lot to do with gender intersexuality.
Right.
And they have accompanying curriculum for schools. She sells these films, screens them in schools and charges a fee, and has done so to 5,000 schools across this country in all 50 states, according to her. So she sells these, and talk about exporting California values.
What's the fee? What's the fee she charges schools?
Well, she charges corporations more, of course, but she charges, from what I can understand from her 990s, it's $300.
Okay.
For schools, but it's more. It can go up to $1,500 for corporations, other people. But it is what's in this curriculum is what's so disturbing to me, including a genderbread person, which is like Mr. Potato Head, where the gender attributes are mix and match. And there's a spectrum of sexuality. So this is what she's pushing on children across the country, not only in California, but we did find, and other reporters have pointed out at the California Post, great reporting there too, is that she, through an Open Records Act, that her Department of Education in Governor Gavin Newsom's Department of Education recommended this as part of their I want to say LGBTQ plus, but it's diversity requirements in public schools. So as part of that, they're saying you recommending this film. But when it comes from the governor-run Department of Education, it's more than a recommendation. It's pressure.
Well, it's pressure, and then you're making it very clear to all these school administrators that they can buddy up to the governor and his wife, and how's that going to work out come contract negotiation time? Obviously.
Right. Well, the teachers unions are clearly behind Gavin Newsom, so it's all in the family, basically. This is fine with the teachers, most of the teachers in California. Of course, there's a lot of independent minds. I would actually say it's fine with administrators.
Right.
But she's actually taking a profit from her for-profit side to the tune of $3.7 million over the last 15 years. So this is actually a moneymaker for her as well.
Yeah, and so the Newsoms have really learned to play the game. I mean, that's long story short. It's sort of the old Dirty Harry line, I think, in Sudden Impact, where he tells the criminal says, if you're going to play the game, love, you better know the rules. No. And it seems like Newsom has helped make the rules that they have benefited from them. For example, these corporations and donors are not paying for his trip overseas for these conferences of the goodness of their heart, or that they think he has anything to really do to make the world a better place overseas. So, what is the Department of Justice? What do you think? What are they looking for? What are they putting their microscope on?
Well, we know that it's Jennifer Siebel Newsom's taxes that's been widely reported, and other financial arrangements. So I'm taking a look at the curriculum, and there's some disturbing elements that I'll have in a California Post piece that's coming out this weekend. But I'm looking at the tax exempt status. Are there violations? Are they getting too political? Are they getting overtly political? In the films themselves, because Gavin Newsom appears 5 times in 2 of these films. So, and is it an improper? Are they getting improper benefits from it? Because nonprofits are supposed to be for the public good, and I'm not naive, but there's a lot of things you can do with a nonprofit, but there's certain lines you cannot cross. And if you're the governor's wife and you throw the governor in there, what benefit are you accruing from that?
Do Democrats acknowledge that there are lines you can't cross anymore? Because looking around the landscape coast to coast, and the activities of all these nonprofits and NGOs, it doesn't appear that there is much of a line left anymore.
Well, in California, I was really taken aback, even after covering this in my book. We provide the roadmap for Gavin Newsom's corruption in our book, Fool's Gold. But I was even taken aback 2 months ago when I did a story on the $1 billion of our taxpayer dollars in California that have gone to nonprofits that specifically provide illegal immigrant services, including preventing criminals from being deported. I'm not kidding you.
No.
And serious criminals. Now, the state legislature last year said, okay, we're going to put a stop to that. But who's looking? That's the problem in California. What's the oversight? Because these nonprofits were definitely engaged in that activity beforehand, and they're still engaged at the county level. I found that 65 serious felons, including rapists, murderers, drug traffickers, in San Diego County are being protected by the public defender's office from being deported through the use. They're leaning on these nonprofits with our taxpayer dollars. It's just unbelievable.
I'm not for adding to government, but it seems to me states need to start having complete independently, even they can even be voted on, just ombudsman to look at all these type of things, because that's how they got their fraud.
No kidding.
Stuff. I mean, literally, I think there's just some positions we need to take away from public officials. Like I've often believed, Jim Bake, you have 5 regions of the country and with 5 governors, and they pick the postal service master.
Right.
They just some of these, or IRS. Let's just take the politics out of it so we don't have these accusations.
Just something.
Sounds like that's something we need for these states, because you said they make these rules, but who looks? I mean, that's why they had billions of Medicare fraud out there, right? No one's looking.
And homelessness, too.
Oh,
they
yeah.
haven't had any rules on Gavin Newsom's signature Home Key project, where he converted motels into homeless housing. There was no limit. There was no oversight on that. So these nonprofits, again, the nonprofits, were applying, and they were saying they were inflating their bank records to apply for this these projects by tens of billions of dollars, and then they were embezzling the money to pay for their. In one case, within a company, nonprofit, called Shangri-La. You can't make this stuff up. Was using it. A 20-something CFO of this nonprofit was using it to pay for his Beverly Hills mansion and diamond necklace for his influencer girlfriend and Ferraris, all kinds of things. So, this is basic oversight. I talked to different people at Secret Service. That's my other sort of big
Right.
Reporting, where I do a lot of exclusive reporting. And I talked to a Secret Service agent who was retired and went on to serve as they do this financial advisory for big companies and hedge funds. And he said, that's just basic. I mean, if you apply for a car loan, the car company calls the bank sometimes, a lot of the times, and make sure you have the amount of money to pay for the loan before giving you the loan. But they don't do that in California to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. They're giving of our taxpayer money over for these homeless projects that somehow either don't materialize or costing so much per unit. It's ridiculous.
Well, the real question about this 20-something-year-old, nonprofit CEO was the diamond lab grown or was it mined? I mean, I think that's most important. I think that's most important. We're going to let you go here, but tell us about the article you come out this weekend in the California Post and how people find it. By the way, we love the California Post. I hope you enjoy writing for it. I think
great
I think it's
addition to the
fantastic.
landscape, yeah.
And probably Gavin Newsom says a prayer every night to have it burned down, I'm sure, because they've not been kind to him. But where do we find your article this weekend?
Yes, this weekend you can find it in the California Post, and also I will tweet it out on my x.com. I'll post it on there. It's at Susan Crabtree.
Susan, it's always a pleasure. Keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your interest.
Always,
Thanks,
always. Folks, this is Breaking Battlegrounds. We hope you've enjoyed the show today with our great guest. You can find us on any podcast. And remember, we air on 960 AM, The Patriot. So on behalf of Sam, myself, Brennan, and Jeremy, have a great weekend. Take care.